It says here we are live. Let me adjust my volume. That's better. Welcome back. Welcome if you are new. Another edition of WASF. Um, it's all WASF at this point, right? Last time I think I was talking about how the situation in Mexico City and Bogota, Colombia is just going to get worse. It can't get any better. Those people are basically screwed. I don't know what to tell them. I don't know what the future holds for those people. It's about 16 million people overall. Now, it gets worse closer to home. We've had about 6 weeks of severe weather in the U.S. Midwest. Actually, normally we would just say, oh, Tornado Alley, and that's like 8 states, but it's really been about the eastern half of the country. So a lot of people. A lot of it's rural, but sometimes when they say, "Oh, yeah, these storms, they're going to affect, people in these areas," and they'll actually say it's, 40 million people are under severe weather alerts, and you know, uh, 18 million people are under severe weather alerts. So, yeah, that's more than the people I was talking about in the last video, right? Um, the U.S. is actually a really populated country. It's big, but it's also really populated. Most of the population is on the West Coast and the East Coast combined, including Florida. But there's still, pockets of heavy population, and these severe storms can really tear these places up. The most recent one that I can think about, there's been dozens of them this year, but the one that comes to mind immediately was the last one, and that was Greenfield, Oklahoma, Kansas, Ohio, Green, Iowa. So I can't. I'm almost where I can't remember. I think it was Iowa, Greenfield, Iowa, and they had most recently it's been speculated to be an EF4 level 4 tornado spin through literally the center of town. Um, and I was watching it live on a severe weather channel where they've kind of turned this into a business. It's well intentioned. They're trying to be helpful. I'll just give them the credit for that. And there's several that I watch when these things are happening. And it's a certain amount of drama. You want to see what's happening, but also I'm really trying to pay attention to what's happening with our severe weather, because severe weather is a symptom of global heating. Maybe I'll point that out why that's the case. But right now, I just want to talk about what's happening. So Greenfield got hit with a big tornado. It pretty much came out of nowhere. They had no warning. It spun up quickly. It became an EF4. That's the latest estimate. And 5 people died, which is unusual. I'll tell you, 5 people dying in a single tornado is fairly unusual. 5 people died, and some of the stories were pretty harrowing. We had no idea what was coming. We had no warning. We didn't know what to do, and people were in denial. I didn't think we could have tornadoes. I mean, it's really dumb to listen to these people are really dumb. Okay, you just can't believe that there are people still in the world that don't understand what's happening to them, and they would be saying things like, yeah, um, I just don't pay any attention to the weather. I don't care about the tornadoes. I don't, they'll let me know if there's a problem. And wow, people, most people are dumb. Okay, let's just face it. I hate to say this, but there's the bell curve of intelligence, and the average person is in the middle. And by mathematical definition, that means half the people are above average intelligence and half the people are below average. Okay, and the people of above average intelligence, well, they're probably going to be okay-ish, right? Because they pay attention. But half the people in the population are by definition morons. They're just morons. They're just not average. They're below average. But that's the mathematical definition of average intelligence. Half the people are below average. And then when you get things like severe weather, right, which is which is like, it's not science, it's meteorology, but it may as well be science. People don't understand where the forecasts come from. They don't understand how the atmosphere works. They don't understand, the water cycle. They don't understand where winds come from. They don't understand any of it. They just don't understand. Even people of some intelligence who have some education who just don't understand. And so the number of people who are technically, below average, who can't cope with these weather events is more than half of the population. It's two-thirds, three-quarters of the population just doesn't get it. They just don't get it. Tornadoes is something you hear about on the news, and then all of a sudden a tornado comes to the middle of your town. You're like, what's that? Oh, that's a tornado. No, we don't get tornadoes. Well, someone's getting a tornado today, okay? And it's you. That tornado has your name on it. It's your turn. Now you get to have some, okay? And I think that the severity of these severe storms have caught people off guard. I think the number of tornadoes being generated at once has caught people off guard. The frequency of the storms, they're like every 3 days, another big severe weather front comes through, and it's catching people off guard. They're just basically not paying attention. They think they understand what this is all about. They just don't understand any of it. They've convinced themselves that it's not a problem for them, and it's totally a problem for them. And they've convinced themselves that it's fake, or it's a hoax, or it's the weathermen trying to make business, or it's the scientists trying to get grants. And they're wrong. It's none of those things. It's real. It's happening. You're just going to kill you. And people are wandering around, driving around, going places, and they're just pretending like it's not real. And it's totally real. It's physics. And it's killing them. 5 people died in and around Greenfield. Really unusual for one tornado to catch that many people. Catch people. You see, it caught them, didn't it? It caught them. It caught them. And they didn't know what to do. Or they knew, but they just didn't do it. It caught them. And that's going to be the theme going forward is, not every single year, not every single month, not every single community, but, the theme is going to be line goes up. The severe weather gets more severe. It becomes more widespread. There's more of it. It comes more frequently. It's just, everything worsening and worsening. And people just won't get it. They just won't get it. I'm convinced now, 3/4 of the population just doesn't get it. Will never get it. Maybe even more than that. Maybe 90% of the population will never understand what's happening to them. Just won't. They just won't understand. They can't understand it. You can even point it out. You can see that cloud over there. That's a tornado, and it's coming this way. And you can tell them that, and they're like, duh, they just don't get it. How can that be a tornado? I only see tornadoes on TV. That's one right there. Well, that can't be real. That you're just pulling my leg. No, it's right there. There's a tornado right there. And look, now the tornado siren just went off. And look, on my cell phone, I'm getting emergency alerts right here on my phone because of my geolocation. They know where I am, and they're telling me right now, your location has a severe alert for a severe tornado, severe weather, hail, whatever else, winds. And it's like, it's right here on my phone. And the siren just went off, and they just won't get it. They just won't get it. And you're thinking, Cougar, you're nuts. You're overstating the problem. No, I'm not. I'm not overstating the problem. You're going to find out I'm right. They don't get it. They don't believe it. They're ill prepared. They don't know what to do. They've never seen a tornado before. Therefore, it can't be a thing. It's a kind of a normalcy bias where people simply say, "Oh, well, it was a great day yesterday. It'll be a great day tomorrow, and I don't see a problem." That's as simple as that. They just don't understand that this stuff is getting well, it's violent. It's getting violent. Their world is becoming violent. I've made several videos where I've used this as a theme. Your world is becoming violent. Stop imagining that it's not. Stop pretending that it isn't. Your world is becoming violent. And that's just talking about the hurricanes and the tornadoes and the derechos and a couple of other physical things that'll blow your trampoline into the neighbor's yard 2 miles away. Yeah, that kind of violence. And then there's the heat waves, and then there's the hail, and then there's the rain, and there's the flooding that results in their horses standing on roofs. And, get used to it. It's coming. Expect it. Expect violence. Expect it, because the violence is coming. It's in the atmosphere. It's in the clouds. It's in the wind patterns. It's there. It's just everywhere at this point. And right now, as I'm making this video. The projections are for today and tomorrow, Labor Day weekend. Lots of people traveling, people being places they didn't expect to be. They're not in their normal home. Now they're in a place that's going to have a tornado. And they're traveling and they're driving and they're in hotels and they don't know what to do. And there's going to be a tornado come because they're saying it's going to be one of the worst tornado outbreaks ever in the places that are getting them. And they were saying that about the last storm. This is the worst storm we've ever seen. And now they're saying, oh, well, actually, yeah, that was pretty bad. But the worst one is actually Labor Day weekend. Today and tomorrow, Saturday and Sunday. Labor Day weekend. So what are they projecting? Massive outbreaks of massive tornadoes. Does it have to happen? No, it doesn't have to happen. But it also could be worse, right? It could be a lot worse than that. I guess we'll see. But the point of this video is that the people in Mexico City don't understand what's happening to them. They just don't like the way their water looks. They don't like the way it smells. They don't like that they only have water 3 hours a day. They just don't, but they don't get it. They go to the government. They protest. They go out in the streets. This is how detached people are. The people in Mexico City, because there's no water in the house and there's no water available, they go out in the streets and they protest. They protest the government. That's not your problem. I mean, it may be part of your problem. There may be some corruption or some mismanagement or whatever. Probably, if you want to protest your government, what the government did to you was they simply never told you. They just never told you what was coming. They knew. They just didn't tell you. And now you turn on your tap and mud comes out and it stinks, smells like sewer, and you can't drink it. And you're wondering where you're going to get water. And some truck keeps bringing you bottles of water. And you're thinking, that's not going to last long. What happens when they run out of bottled water? Well, then what do? I'm dependent on these people bringing me bottled water. And I'm dependent on there not being a million people storming the Capitol trying to find the water. This isn't going to work. What if this doesn't work for me? So, and now they're protesting. Hey, I'm afraid, I'm frightened. Well, what happens when the bottled water doesn't come? What happens when you decide not to deliver it? What happens when someone steals it and then sells it to me for, $20 a bottle equivalent? And, I'm feeling really vulnerable here. Now I'm going to go out in the streets. I'm going to protest and I'm going to demand my rights and I'm going to demand somebody fix it. And say, they have no clue. They just have no clue. They're just completely clueless. They're just chimps. And I'm not saying that to be racist. I'm just saying that they have no more idea what's happening to them than chimps would understand what's happening to them. Because they have what? They have no data. They have no education. They have no experience. There's no history of this. They have nothing. They have none of the tools that humans would need to make sense of something this complicated, this disastrous in Mexico City. They just don't have the tools. No one taught them. No one explained it to them. No one taught them the science ever. No, none of the science ever. No science of any kind ever about anything ever. Physics, math, rainfall, climate, nothing ever. They never got science. They never got any of it. And now, even if the government does do a public service announcement or a warning or something, they just can't understand it. Scratch, scratch, scratch. What's he talking about? You understand what he's talking about? I don't understand what he's talking about. Someone explain to me what this guy's talking about. He mentioned the word water. I understand the word water. What's the rest of the shit? What's climate change? What's he talking about? Global heating, greenhouse effect. What the fuck? The drought. I mean, I understand water. Tell me where the water is. And that's what a chimp would want to know. Where's the water? All I know is that there's no water. And the people in Bogota, Colombia are in exactly the same situation. They don't understand what's happening to them. And they're going to protest the government. And they're going to raise banners. And they're going to set fire to cars. And they're going to storm the Capitol. And they're going to do all these things. It's like, guys, your battle is with physics. Atmospheric, earth dynamic physics. That's your battle. Government can't help you. You could drag them all out of the Capitol building and beat them with rods and do whatever you want to do, and they can't fix it. They're in the same boat you're in. They're also running out of water. Now, they're the elites, of course. They'll always get water, but hey, still not a pretty picture for them. And right now, the people that I follow on YouTube and elsewhere are saying, hey, we got this monumental storm outbreak coming to the U.S. Midwest. and it's going to be the worst ever, and the conditions are horrific, and everything is lining up. It's just going to be annihilation. Make sure you know where you are. Make sure you know how to get out of the storm. Make sure you have a safe place. And if you don't have a safe place, figure out what you're going to do. Figure it out now, because some of you are going to be looking at a very large and maybe even very numerous tornadoes. And of course, all the usual things, torrential rain, huge hailstones, massive hail cores, dropping hail all over the county, and straight line winds, 100 miles an hour, 120 mile an hour straight line winds, and then all these tornadoes embedded in all that. They've got 200-mile-an-hour winds. We're going to have EF3s, EF4s, EF5s. They're going to be one right after the other, right? It'll be Greenfield all over again, times 2, doubled, quadrupled, right? People don't understand it. They just got no clue. They're saying there's going to be a tornado. Oh, don't worry about it. We get tornadoes around here. They're not a big deal. You get plenty of warning. Yeah, really? That's what your granddaddy told you? Is that what your great uncle is telling you? Don't worry about it. Listen, man, things are changing. These people don't know, okay? They don't know. All they know is what they knew. And what you knew is not going to help you going forward. It's not going to help you this weekend. What you think you know about tornadoes from when you were a child growing up in Nebraska doesn't help you now with what's coming this weekend. It doesn't help you. But they all think they know something, and they're all going to trot out their conventional wisdom and say, well, tornadoes, sure, they're not a big deal. You get to watch them. They go through the cornfields and they make a mess. And then we go back to eating hot dogs and hamburgers because it's Memorial Day. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see, won't we? We'll just see. But that's not the real message here. Because if it was just weather, I'd be, okay, yeah, good luck, people. Yeah, we'll see how you handle this. If it was just the weather, I'd say good luck. But that's not the story here, is it? That's certainly not the story of Mexico City running out of water, and that's not the story of Bogota, Colombia running out of water, and that's not the story where they're having torrential floods and enormous hailstones, and it's not the story in Southeast Asia where they're getting both torrential rains and unsurvivable heat. Right? That's not the story there. The story for all of these things, including the terrible weather that's coming this weekend, today and tomorrow, is global heating. Now, global heating is relentless. This is physics. Okay, this is rocks, basically. This is the same story as rocks rolling down hills. Gravity wins. This is the same thing as planes crashing out of the sky. Gravity wins. And, global heating is physics, just like that. It's physics. And if you don't understand physics, well, then you don't understand global heating. And a lot of people don't understand physics. What is it? 90% of the people in the country never had a physics course or slept through it or immediately forgot it, took the exam, got a C, and went on with their life. Is that like 90% of the country? 99% of the country? That's their story. They had one physics class, got a C, and promptly forgot all of it and went on and got married and had a family. And now there's a tornado coming. And they don't understand why. Is that like 99% of the U.S. population? Yeah, probably. So when I come on here and I say, oh, yeah, your storms this weekend, you're going to have this again. And you might even have it next weekend. And you might have it the weekend after that. And you might not. You might have this. You could have situations like this every week for the rest of your life, for the rest of eternity. Because global heating is physics. And the physics that we're talking about here is not lining up for you to have a normal day. The physics is not making that outlook very probable. We're changing the planet. We're heating the planet. How are we doing that? We are heating the planet by enhancing the greenhouse effect, which is natural and normal and helpful, actually. But we're enhancing it. We're changing it. We're changing it by emitting carbon dioxide gas into the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide gas, as well as methane and nitrous oxides and some other things, are they trap heat. They trap heat. And carbon dioxide in particular, once it's been ejected into the atmosphere, tends to remain there for geologic time, like thousands of years, even hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions of years. It just gets locked in the atmosphere and then it's stuck there. And you can say, oh, well, plants can pull it down. Yeah, they do, but the plants are part of the carbon cycle. So when the plant pulls carbon out of the atmosphere, and then the plant dies, it returns it back to the atmosphere. So yeah, it's removed for a little while. And then you mow your lawn and it's returned back to the atmosphere. So whatever. I mean, what have you really accomplished? Almost nothing. But we could plant forests. Where are you going to plant those? In your cornfields? Are you going to give up corn to have forests? And what happens when you've planted all the land on the planet with forests and now what are you going to do? Put trees on Mars? Well, that's not going to help you because that's Mars and it's not Earth. All right. So what do you do? How do you fight physics? You don't. That's the answer. You don't. You don't fight physics. Certainly not with the carbon cycle. Plants, give me a break. We'll innovate. Go ahead. Tell me how that works out. Come back to me in 18 months and let me know how that worked out because that's about the amount of time you have. Because this weekend, some people are going to be murdered by tornadoes. They're going to be outside having hot dogs and hamburgers and visiting with their relatives, and tornadoes are going to come through, and no one's going to know what to do. And they'll ignore it, and they'll say it's a hoax, and they'll say tornadoes are never a big deal. We get tornadoes all the time. It is to laugh. And then it'll come through and kill them all. Because they don't understand. It's not like your granddaddy's tornado. It's not like, the Wizard of Oz. It's a prop. This is atmospheric physics. This is the planet getting spun up because of global heating caused by excessive contributions of CO2 to the atmosphere, increasing the heat capacity of the atmosphere. And where does the CO2 come from? It comes from the combustion of fossil fuels. And what are those? Coal, oil, and natural gas, which we dig out of the ground. You dig the carbon out of the ground, you set it on fire to, drive your diabetic ass to the KFC to get chicken. And after you burn it, getting your KFC, it goes into the atmosphere and it stays there for 1,000,000 years. We keep pulling up the coal and setting it on fire and setting the CO2 up. When we pull up the natural gas, we set it on fire and we set the CO2 up. And we pull up the oil, we refine it into useful products, set those all on fire and put the CO2 in the atmosphere. That's what we do. No one understands that that's what they're doing. They don't. They just don't understand. 99% of the American people have no idea that that's what's happening. They just don't. If you told them that's what's happening, they wouldn't believe you. Or they'd accuse you of using long words or whatever. They'd make you feel bad for telling them that. And, the 1% that says, yes, that's what's happening. What do you expect me to do about it? Because I can't stop driving. I can't stop flying. I can't stop getting my goods from China on cargo containers and huge cargo ships that barely pass under the bridge. Are so huge. I can't stop any of these things. Well, okay, fair. But you do need to understand what's happening to you and how it's happening. And you need to start getting ready for some really ugly shit to come your way because that's what's going to happen. And the storms that are coming this weekend that everyone will say storms, tornadoes, hail, wind, it was so bad. It was, what happened to us. This was the worst ever. Next year, they're going to be saying the same. They'll completely forget about 2024. Or if they make any comparisons, they'll be saying things like, oh, yeah, 2024 year was a bad year, but we're expecting 2025 to be even worse. And then 2025 will come and it'll be even worse. People will say, what's going on with the weather? Well, got through that. Thank heavens. Thank God. And then, 2026 will come and they'll project, well, 2026 is going to be worse than 2025. And people will say, wait, haven't I heard this before? Yeah, you have heard this before. Yeah, and you're going to hear this every year. You're going to hear this every year because we don't stop fucking with the system. It's getting hotter all the time. It's getting hotter all the time. And, there's some variance. Sometimes it's hotter. Sometimes it's a little cooler. Sometimes it's hotter. Then it's a little cooler. And there's some variation. And there's seasonal variations. We have this thing called winter. And, and then there's some maybe longer term variations over a couple of years, like whatever El Nino does or La Nina does and those kinds of things. But the trend is up. Whatever the variations are, the line is still going up. When you average them all out, you smooth them all out, the line goes up. It's going this way. That's where the heat is going up. It's not going down. It's not going sideways. It's going up. And because our weather systems and our droughts, talking to you, Mexico City, talking to you, Bogota, Colombia, and our heat waves, talking to you, Southeast Asia, are all driven by heat. It's all the Earth dynamic system trying to do something with all the heat. And since that's what's happening, then as the line goes up, as the heat increases every year, which it does do, every year it increases. There's nowhere else for it to go. It can't go anywhere We can't export it to Mars. It's just stuck here on Earth. It's just going to heat the Earth, and the Earth gets hotter every year on average. And and that means that these storms and these droughts and these heat waves and these everything else, just their only chance is just to get worse. If it doesn't get worse next year, well, it'll get double worse next year. It just, that's all it can do, is get worse. So yeah, these people think they're having a really terrible, severe weather outbreak in the Midwest and the eastern half of the U.S., and they're saying, "Wow, this is this is something else. I've never seen anything like this. In my whole entire career, I've never seen storms like this." And they're violent and they're large and there's so many of them, and they just come one day after the other, day after day after day. And what is going on? And I've never seen this before. And they're just, like I said in the last video, they're just walking around the elephant in the room, right? They're saying, "I don't understand this." And meanwhile, global heating is right there. All this science about global heating, all these warnings about global heating, and tying all this back to fossil fuel consumption. Not that people do that. I do that. No one else does that. Yeah, it's your fossil fuel consumption. Coal, oil, and natural gas. Just put that in your brain pan and let that roll around like a marble, okay? Because that's what's going on. That's the elephant in the room that everybody keeps walking around the elephant, stepping in the elephant shit, walking through the elephant piss. And there's no elephant as far as they're concerned. There's just, they don't acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is global heating. And they just don't. Nobody does. The guy, the weatherman on the news, he doesn't talk about it. Now, of course, he's only got 20 seconds to talk about the weather, but they could give him a little more time. They could give him another 10 seconds, right, to talk about global heating and its role in all of this. I mean, the science is well understood. It's basic physics. And, and if they don't learn these things in meteorology school or meteorology day or whatever it is they got most of their education, well, then they could go back to school, right? And learn yourself some Earth system dynamics, learn yourself some climate science, learn yourself some, CO2 levels, and, come back and do the evening news and throw some of that in there. If you don't understand it, it's over your head. You're one of the 99% that doesn't get it. Well, then you're the weatherman. Go back to school, read a book. I don't know. Go to a seminar, go to a weekend class, whatever it takes. Do some, what do they call it? Adult ed, right? Night school. Go to night school. Learn some science, for fuck's sake. Because the weatherman is the only person who's in a position to mention any of this. Do you expect the talking head, the news anchor, to talk about this shit? Of course not. Those people are sitting in front of the camera because they got straight teeth and nice hair. They don't know jack about anything. They don't understand one topic that they talk about on the news. The weatherman is supposed to understand the weather. Can we just allow for that? The weatherman, the weather dude, the weather girl is supposed to understand the weather. What causes the weather? What's behind the storms? Why are we having so many storms? People are asking, yeah, okay, another set of storms this weekend, worst ever. Why? Why is this happening? Why are we having a year like this? You think I didn't notice? Yeah, I may be a chimp and I don't understand science, but I can notice what's happening to me. Okay? I notice what's happening to my world. It's just one goddamn thing after another. And I've noticed. Now, I may be kind of dumb, I may be a chimp, I may not understand science or data or anything else, but I did notice that, yeah, the weather has been hell on earth. I did notice that. So you can talk about that because I did notice that. I'm listening carefully. Okay. Tell me about that. But the weather guy won't. He won't do it. This can only get worse. Yes, this weekend is going to be terrible. There's going to be fatalities. There are going to be people who are far from home visiting a relative for the Memorial Day. And when the tornado hits, they won't know what to do. Or they'll be stuck in a hotel room or a rental house, a rental room or something. And they just won't know what to do because they're actually from, wherever, Nevada or Oregon. And they don't know what to do when there's a tornado. And they'll just be sitting out there. They'll be standing out in the parking lot outside their hotel room before they go over to Aunt Bertha's for holiday, and they'll be standing out there. Wow, that's a beautiful, is that a tornado? I've never seen a tornado before. Here, let me get my selfie, and I'll just take myself with a selfie with the tornado in the background. I'm doing a selfie with the tornado in the background, and then a huge 2x4 flies through their head. Where'd the 2x4 come from? Well, the town 10 miles over. That's where that 2x4 came from, because that's what tornadoes do. Yeah, it just destroyed the town, 4 or 5, 10 miles away, and now all that debris is coming and landing on you. And there's a piece of plywood over there, and there's some roofing, and there's a child's plush toy, and then there's a 2x4 that just went through your head or went through your car, and you were in the car. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with. The Greenfield tornado was particularly ugly, and I was watching it, and I know something about tornadoes. I've watched a lot of tornadoes develop and do destruction and die, and I'd never seen anything like that. It didn't it didn't cut a broad swath through the town. It was actually fairly narrow. But the tornado itself, although it was compact, I don't want to call it small because that implies something like children are small. Children are harmless, right? Puppies are small. Puppies are harmless. It wasn't small because it wasn't harmless. It was compact and it was violent. And that's the key word going forward. As the Earth dynamic system spins up with energy, as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and there's more energy to work through the system, there's more energy to do work, to lift things, to smash things, to move things across the landscape, to pick up cars, to tear trees apart, work to do. There's more energy to do work. As these systems end up with more energy and there's more work they can do, they're going to become unbelievably violent. And the tornado, which was compact, thank the deities, that was compact, was so violent that it created a debris field that spanned other counties in Iowa. And I was watching Ryan Hall as he tracked this tornado. And the debris field was enormous. You could see it on the radar. And he was gobsmacked. He was like, I can't believe this. And, I've watched his program a lot of times. He and I have watched a lot of tornadoes develop. And he's watching them because he's trying to get people tornado warnings. I'm watching because I'm trying to figure out what's going on the ground. All right. I'm trying to understand. I'm a scientist. I'm collecting data. And so he's not doing science. I'm doing science. I'm using his program to do my science. And so I'm watching this thing develop. And I'm thinking, damn, that's a compact tornado. And that debris field is unbelievable. And then he said, this debris field is unbelievable. And then he said something that was really, really scary, kind of like a horror show. He said he took his little marker that he can use on the screen. Okay. It's a little digital marker. And he drew a line. He says, all this debris is Greenfield. And he was right. And it was this huge swath. It's like you were casting seeds. It's this huge swath of debris on the radar. Very distinct debris. No question that's what it was. It was like the most obvious debris field. Plywood, 2x4s, aluminum sheeting, clothing, bodies. It's just this debris field strewn across Iowa. He says that's Greenfield. That's Greenfield. And so far as he and I knew, it was the entire town of Greenfield. It wasn't. It was a big part of it. Greenfield is probably, as a practical thing, Greenfield is probably destroyed. A lot of businesses were lost. A lot of homes were lost. Hospital was damaged. Greenfield wasn't that big a place. It was like 2,500 people, and probably it won't recover. Probably it just won't recover. And there will be lots of towns like Greenfield probably this weekend. There'll be many of them. And what happens when this counties run out of money? And what happens when the state can't support the counties anymore? And what happens when FEMA runs out of money? I heard a FEMA person, and I think they were in Greenfield, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, FEMA, we're supposed to come here and we'll help you." And then they say things like, "We'll rebuild everyone's home." Really? That's how we do this? We're just going to rebuild everyone's home right back where it was, and they're not going to build them underground? Is that what you're going to do? No, you're not going to build them underground. You're just going to build them like they were, just a stick house. for the next tornado to come through. Yeah, that's what they're going to do. And they were bragging, "Oh yeah, we're going to rebuild everyone's home, but we'll be running out of money before the end of the year." So not everybody's home because hurricane season is still ahead of us. And so what? So you're going to spend your entire budget, and this is what's happening, okay? And not because they don't have money, because they don't have enough money. They didn't understand that the line goes up. The amount of violence in these storms increases every year from here on out. So they're not budgeting for global heating. They're budgeting for what happened last year, or maybe even over the last 20 years, and they're budgeting for the norm. And so they're already saying, "Oh yeah, we're going to run out of money, but these people, we're going to rebuild these people's homes, and they're going to be made whole. They're going to be good, and they're going to vote for Joe Biden or whoever they think saved them." And um, but yeah, we are running out of money before the end of the year, and that means the hurricane season, right? So what's FEMA going to do when? And we're supposed to have a record hurricane season. It only gets worse, people. It never gets better. It can't. Gravity wins, and in this case, global heating wins. It just doesn't get better. It can only get worse. That's all it can do is get worse. It can only get worse. You got to understand that. You've got to understand. Let that marble roll around in your brain. Let it stick there. Let that be your next thought for this year, this weekend, next year. That has to be your thought. It only gets worse because that's physics. That's how physics works. That's how that shit works. Now, I know you got a C in your physics class, and I know you didn't pay much attention, and you graduated, and you're doing your best possible life, and you got your family, and you got your job, and you got your neighbors, and you got your career, and you got all these things all figured out, and good on you. Good on you. Now you got to learn some physics. Now you have to, go back and remember, oh yeah, physics, that's the thing, isn't it? I didn't learn much about it, but hey, that's a thing. Yeah, it's a thing. And here's what you need to know about physics now. Maybe getting a C in your physics class was fine. We had other things to deal with, right? You had a nighttime job, and you had a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and you had family problems, and you were a teenager, and your life sucked, and you got a C in physics, and you felt great about it. Fine, that's great. Well, now you need to know some fucking physics, okay? I'm telling you, it only gets worse because we haven't stopped doing any of the things that we've been doing for 70 solid years. It only gets worse. The atmosphere can only get hotter. The oceans can only get hotter. The storms can only get worse. There can only be ever more violence. Not every single day, not every single storm, but on average, the violence goes up. All right. Where does it end? Well, who says it does? Who says it ends? People who understand this principle, people who understand physics, people who understand the trend of where this is going, people like me, we're now contemplating, so line goes up, violence increases, hotter gets hot, hot gets hotter, rains harder, the hailstones get bigger, line goes up, everything goes up, everything gets worse. And then what? Does it have to end? Nope. Does it ever get better? Nope. What can make it better? Nothing. So it's just going to get worse. Yeah. Well, then what do we do? I don't know. Leave, hide, go underground, die. Maybe we need some fiction writers to start writing stories about these things. Yeah. What do we do? It's 10 years after the horrible tornado season of 2024. It's 2034. And the storms are just constant. Flooding kills more people even than tornadoes. And the crops are withering in the fields, and farmers haven't planted a crop for 2 years, and we're starting to run out of food, and we try to buy food on the open market, and everyone else is having similar problems. Too much heat, too much rain, too little rain, rain coming at the wrong time, and and so there's no food to buy on the open market, and everyone's trying to scramble around and find food, and we haven't had proper crops in the US for a long time. The Midwest is flooding or overheated or tornadoes or hail or something. All of it. It's like biblical times, right? It's like biblical plagues, and we just don't understand what happened. And it's 2034, and Well, 10 years before 2024, people were talking like I'm talking now. People who were in the 1% who didn't fail physics or went on to get degrees in physics, people who can pay attention to what's happening in the world and aren't completely lost in their individual lives, which is fine. I'm not throwing shade on you and your individual life, but hey, people get lost in their lives, right? Well, now is not a good time to be lost in your life. Now is the time to get your head out of your life and start looking around. And global heating is a thing, people. And it manifests itself as violence in the system. The Earth dynamic system is a system, it's a thing. And right now it's being spun up and made violent by global heating. All that energy has to go somewhere and do something. So it forms tornadoes and tears up communities. That's a thing. That's work. It can do that kind of work. It can create hurricanes and tear up entire states. It can do that. Sure, I got heat, got plenty of heat. I can evaporate all this water. I can spin up all these cyclones. I can throw them at the state of Florida. Yeah, I can do that. That's work. I can use heat to do all those things. And we'll tear up the trees, tear up the houses, and throw them all in the sky and wash them all out to sea and have all this rain and all this stuff. And yeah, that's what you do when you have all this excess energy. You do excess shit. You do dangerous excess shit. And by 2034, people will understand. They'll finally understand. Someone made a comment in my last video that, yeah, if we had done something about this 60 years ago, we'd be in a different place. Yeah, but we didn't. We're not now either, are we? No, we're not. We're not doing it now either. And people will say, well, why didn't you do something? Well, you didn't do anything 60 years ago. Why do I have to do anything now? Good question. I'm not really a doomer. I don't take any pleasure in this. I don't find it exciting. I find it annoying and depressing. I have other things to do. What I am is I'm a scientist and I'm paying attention. And I feel like I have some obligation, being that I have that gift, if you want to call it that, of knowing what's happening, of understanding what's happening. I understand it. I absolutely understand it. I understand it. I know that 99.9% of the people don't understand it. I know that I will live my entire life and probably never find anyone who I can shake hands with who understands it. I'm me. I'm just me here understanding it, understanding the fuck out of this, okay? And not liking what I'm seeing and being really worried and being afraid for the future and knowing that we screwed up for the last 60, 70 years and we're probably going to continue to screw up because we're screwing up today. And there's no talk of not screwing it up. We're continuing to burn fossil fuels, the coal, the oil, the natural gas. We keep putting the CO2 into the atmosphere. We keep not caring. We keep not noticing. We keep not simply understanding. We just don't understand. 99% of people don't understand anything I've said in this entire video. Not one syllable of it. And one defense mechanism is just to deny it. Oh, those scientists, they're always using big words. They're always throwing their knowledge around, their education. They got all these fancy degrees, and now they're just going to make us all feel bad, make us all feel like chimps. He even called us chimps. Yeah, well, compared to the Earth dynamic system and the complexity of the things that we're dealing with right now, you are, okay? You are. That's not throwing shade. You're just out of your element. I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's May 25th, Memorial Day weekend. And the people who follow these things and who I pay attention to because they're collecting data for me, so I watch their programs, they're saying this is going to be the worst weekend of the entire year for severe weather. Will they say anything about global heating? No, they won't. And that's my job. So I take that on. Now, I won't have 120,000 viewers on my live stream. I've got 3. And Ryan Hall, when the tornadoes are blowing up and they're tearing the houses apart and throwing the mobile homes into the next county and people's dogs and cats and horses on standing on roofs and all this stuff. He'll have 130,000 people on his live stream. And he won't say what I just said, that it only gets worse. He won't say that. Now, he knows that. Ryan Hall is actually pretty smart. In the past, he has kind of vaguely alluded to these concepts that, there's something behind all this, folks. He's walking around the elephant in the room, but he's kind of saying there might be an elephant in the room. Okay. He's that guy. He knows there's an elephant in the room, but he doesn't want to alienate his weather nerds by saying, guys, there's kind of an elephant in the room here. See this over here? I keep bumping into something. I keep walking around the room and I'm walking through elephant shit and I'm walking through elephant pee and I keep bumping into something. And I think there might be an elephant in the room. He's that kind of guy. He sort of knows. He may know exactly what I'm saying. He may be one of those guys that actually I could walk up to and shake hands and he could say, yes, we both understand this. Okay. But he doesn't say it. Why? Because he's a weatherman, right? And he does weather, and weather is weather, and weather is just, it's going to rain, and weather is going to hail, and whether or not there's going to be sunshine, and it's Memorial Day weekend, and get out there and have fun unless there's some bad weather, and the weather's going to be this, weather's going to be that. And so he's kind of a weatherman, and he's making good money on his YouTube channel talking about the weather. And I watch his stuff, right? I'm contributing to his income to some extent, but I'm there to collect the data. And he's there to not collect the data, or at least not to talk about it. I think he knows. I think Max knows. These guys aren't dummies. They're not dummies. They can talk about large-scale mesocyclones. They can talk about, high-altitude cirrus clouds and where hailstones come from, and vertical convection and the violence in the system, and how big these hurricanes are and how big these tornadoes are and all. They can talk about that stuff. They know the lingo. They know what's going on. They know the physics too. So they probably know that global heating is driving this. They won't say it. They have 130,000 people on their live stream, right? And these guys are all millionaires as a result. And I don't care about that. Okay, I could do something to have more people on my streams, but I don't do anything of that. I don't do any of that stuff because I don't care. But you should like and subscribe, right? That's free. You can do that. Maybe someday I'll have 130,000 people on my live stream. But if I do, this is what I'm going to be saying to them. This is what I'm going to be saying. So maybe we should do that. I don't know. It'll happen someday. Maybe. I doubt it. Doesn't matter. This is my conversation about the same stuff that he'll be talking about when he's just talking about certain cities being turned inside out by a tornado. Because that's what's going to happen this weekend. Cities are going to be torn inside out by tornadoes. And hailstorms and derecho winds and torrential rains and all the fun stuff. All the fun weather. Well, let this thought start rattling around in your head that from here on it only gets worse. It only gets worse. And what does that look like? Beats me. I really don't know. I don't really want to find out, but I guess we're going to. Good luck out there.